Brooklyn Core, they think up some of the best campaigns. They just diverge from the rest of Core in a way that even the Core leadership can't fully explain. By the early 60s, many dreams and desires are coming into conflict with a city that is stubbornly committed to both racial segregation and racial inequality. One of the interesting things that happens in Bed-Stuy is the emergence of an extraordinarily dynamic, creative, and at times, depending on your perspective, troubling civil rights style.
Organizations like CORE are generally associated with the South. Brooklyn CORE was actually one of the more radical chapters of the Congress of Racial Equality. New York at its core gives visitors the opportunity to see some of the ways in which creative thinking and grassroots organizing was transformative.
There was really something quite incredible about the Brooklyn group. Their experiences often got marginalized, even when we were talking about the needs of Black New Yorkers, because they're actually at a distance, both physically and socially, from the political institutions that tend to dominate the city.
There were a number of campaigns involving well-known companies, A&P Supermarkets, Seal Test, White Castle. Seal Test was a very large and important dairy company based in Brooklyn.
Barely 1% of the workforce was African American. Those employees were largely confined to the most menial jobs.
Brooklyn CORE staged a protest movement and a boycott. They created flyers that said, "Don't buy Seal Test products until Seal Test hires some Black or Puerto Rican workers." It really spells out not only what the goals of the organization are, but the tactics that they were using, saying we will use our purchasing power.
One of these flyers exists in English and Spanish languages.
It's sort of like a cap that would be worn in the military.
Right, in the battle.
And this is one of the many campaigns where CORE actually showed its capacity to get, in fact, real results.
By the late 60s, the push for economic justice moved beyond the boundaries of neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy. What comes out of this is a broader cultural moment that spills over into art and fashion.
I received a phone call from a woman who was the executor of an estate, of a woman who lived in Harlem, who had been a designer. And we entered a darkened apartment, looked around, and there were dolls all over. I noticed eyelashes, I noticed eye makeup. Each one had a different facial expression, and they were very wildly gestured. They kind of had a feeling of Barbie dolls, but they were emphatically not Barbie dolls. Ruby Bailey was a designer and an artist. She was really smack dab in the middle of the Harlem community.
Ruby Bailey really represents a creative and artistic turn that came out of the 1960s. There's a movement to say Black is beautiful, an embrace of Afrocentric culture and an Afrocentric look. And so Ruby Bailey embodies that beautifully with her designs and her dolls.
She leads this extraordinary life across a period of time where there is both radical transformation in the world in which African Americans live and the absence of change. It's in the arts where a lot of that is captured.
There were real sources of inequality and discrimination in New York. I think a lot of what CORE was pushing for really found a voice and legs later in the form of setting standards so that schools and companies had a demographic makeup that truly reflected the larger society, but New York remains a heavily segregated city.
the very issues that gave rise to a civil rights revolution continue with us today. And we have to ask ourselves why and how. And the answer is, I think, that we've never fully confronted the depth of injustice in our society.
In choosing objects for New York at its core, we were looking for objects that provided unusual and intimate insights into people who lived in New York at various points in its history. And some of them are very famous, some of them are infamous, and some of them are not known or remembered at all.